So we're going to dive right in. Last session, we had our win as much as you can, right? And we saw that it left our own devices not following the game plan, we get ourselves in trouble, right? So today, we're going to be seeking first to understand, then be understood. Means how do we live win-win thinking? So we're going to be applying really the principles that we learned last time, and now say how do we actually do this in our relationships at home, at work, with our customers, with strangers, with whoever's put in our path every day. And if we do that, obviously we're going to have a great victory, right? So we've been going through, RV did, I think, a great job actually reviewing the 7 habits. We've been practicing being proactive, having an end in mind that we have a purpose in our lives, we need to be following purpose. We have a purpose as a company. So what is the Fechtel company making a difference? If the Fechtel company wasn't here, what would be lost? Right? What would be lost if we're not here? We should be making a difference that people can understand. So we got to get our act together by putting first things first, prioritizing, right? So we've learned all these tools. It's all built up in your book here. We're getting quite a toolkit. And we're going to be applying really all these tools here today as we get ready to build healthy, happy relationships for a lifetime. So win as much as you can was competitive. We're going to change that upside down. You know, really everything that our country is caught up in. You know, there's so much materialism. And, I'm going to win, that means you're going to lose, right? So much in our society that's not the way God planned it to be. So we can be that light, that beacon to shine in to our world and say, you know, God's going to do this a little bit differently. So today we're going to be talking about how to listen, something we're probably not very good at because we like to talk, right? We like to let people know what we want, what we understand, right? So here's going to be an opportunity. We're going to be doing some hands-on practicing. We're going to help you see where you are with your listening skills and how to be more effective in building then a relationship with people because you're willing to listen to them. So if you look at our maturity continuum, right, we've been climbing this to the interdependent level, the public victory. And the key to having a public victory is to have healthy relationships. So we're going to be thinking about how am I getting along with my family members? How am I getting along with God? Is supposed to be number one, right? How am I getting along with my clients and customers? So my individual relationships, and then obviously as a team, how are we getting along? How are we applying this so we can work together and help each other? You know, applying these principles. So I'd like to quickly have us stop and teach each other because we're going to be using win-win today. So I want you to get in a partner. So if we grab a partner next to you, grab partners here. Steve, you can jump in with those guys. Grab a partner. Here's some new guys. Help teach them what we just learned this last time. How do you get from hurting to uniting? And how do we apply that to problem solving so we don't fall into debating and arguing and breaking relationships down? So quickly teach each other, right? We got to get this fresh. So grab your partner, do-si-do. Jay, Adam, you can grab in the back there.
Got it.
Oscar.
Here with the
We can put Oscar here, or we can put him over here.
The camera can see it.
You got a chair right there.
This is Debbie's chair. That's not going to work here. How about we put him? No, don't just sit there. Let me get the chair.
everybody has an empowerment.
Hey.
I'll let you get back there.
Yeah. Hey, buddy. You need a chair? Oh, yeah. I think there might be one in here.
No, you're good. You need this? I didn't read his, if you need to read from last week.
So, hey, you want to teach me, man? Win-win. Teach me. Win-win. Strengthen yourself. So if you think about it, even though there's a situation that's better outcome, and getting to that goal, and empowering yourself, around you, not strengthening your team, isolating yourself. So if when you process it, analyze why you said it's made, you go, okay, this is great, benefits me. It doesn't raise those serving others. But at the same time, I'm thinking,
Conflict resolution. This was approaches when you get into just listening to somebody, listening to
really
selling their own view.
Okay, take a minute to wrap up.
Listening to the other point of view, trying to sell them on your point. And so listening, that's the other life. Arguing, fighting.
the hardest time to do that.
You have that's the last reading.
Dealt with the first one.
Yes, that's the last one.
Then the other side of that could be avoiding. Just to listen to all, avoid problems.
Okay. I love to hear the teaching. When you're teaching it, remember, that is the long-term memory, right? We gotta have these tools available so we can be able to win the award, right? Awarding moments. And I think one thing that Artie was really trying to tell us, summed it all up, is we've got to be coachable, right? There's a game plan, but are we coachable? Are we willing to take truth and put it into our lives? Or do we just, nod our heads and say, yeah, that's good stuff, right? So we talk about being coachable, that there's two things you need to do, right? We've got to be open. We've got to be willing to share. We've got to also be willing then to get feedback, right? How am I doing? Not just waiting until there's a complaint from our customers, but asking them, how am I doing? How am I serving you, right? Can be a great opportunity for customer service, right? So it's all about building habits. We have to have a desire. So we can't be passive in this process. If we're going to be Christian, we're going to change our lives, change the environment we're in, we've got to be desiring to do it, thirsty for the knowledge, and then we got to practice it. And to build our habits, how many days does it take?
30.
About 30 days, about a month, right? So we've got to be at it every day until it becomes natural to us, just the way that we operate. So our goose in the golden egg is saying, if we can apply and take care of proactive things, then the results will come, right? So we got to be doing the right things to get the results, not just trying to get golden eggs and not do the preparation to get it, right? So the key then is we've got to decide to be, right, proactive. We've got to be all that God made us to be whatever our role is, be part of the team, right? And that means we got to do our plans. When you plan to do something, you got to follow through with it, right? Otherwise, your life doesn't change. So we said, rather than wait till crisis forces us to change personally, or because God will allow it to happen, eventually He's going to get you on your path, and either willingly or not, right? He'll push you in the direction you need to go. We don't want the Fechtel company to have to learn by crisis. We'd rather anticipate and be ahead, right? Be ahead of our industry, because the tree is known by its fruit, right? So not that we look good or we're showing up to work, that's great, but we've got to be productive in how we work. So everyone had an action plan. So if you would, grab your neighbor just like you did there and share, what have you done so far? Either with your time management we've had before or with our win-win planning from last time. Where you said, hey, I'm going to improve a relationship. I'm going to not appreciate or take for granted, the people around me, I'm going to appreciate them, right? So grab your partner, do-si-do, quickly share. What did you do to apply what we learned in the last sessions here?
What's your step on steps? What's your step?
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking about that. There is like this. Me,
There's always limit to get in the way.
Way above that.
Yeah,
get away with it. So it isn't like a Zoom.
How's that? You want it in bad?
That's a great. No, I think.
Yeah, you check yourself. Yeah, I know. I go, okay.
It seemed like I started.
yeah.
Okay, next thing to wrap up here.
That's kind of an action move, but it's just a thing.
Okay, so if we had a chance to share some of our action plans, does anyone have one that might inspire the group? Either a success story or you tried something and it didn't work, but that doesn't gonna keep you from not trying, right? Does anyone have a story to share with our whole team here? Yes,
All
Roy.
right, for a change. I've been going to the doctor. I know Jay knows and Shay knows, Dave knows. I've been going to the doctor like every 3 months for the last 7 years. As of yesterday, I don't have to go back for 6 months. Everything came out because I've been eating right and walking with Kendra since we've been back together. We walk 3 times a week, at least 4 miles. I've lost 12 pounds in the last 2 months. And my cholesterol is below 100 the first time in 7 years.
Nice.
Wow.
She gave me a clean bill of health yesterday and said, good job.
Praise God.
Yeah.
So obviously some changes in habits, right?
Yeah.
And nothing like being happily married, right? We are wives and great things for us, that's right. Anyone else, an action plan to apply win-win thinking, that you're gonna try to understand someone else and then have them understand you and negotiate that win-win? Maybe at home or with a client. Did anyone have a win-win story to tell? I see Shane's kind of looking, I don't know if it's like, don't make eye contact with the instructor. Anyone have a story? Anyone?
This isn't a story, but it's an opportunity I had this week that was really cool.
Okay.
I had a customer who was frustrated with a subcontractor
Okay.
and said, I'd be willing to sit down with you and talk about it, which is not something that, one, subcontractors really want to do, and two, that a customer is willing to do. But the synergy that came out of this meeting was fantastic.
Cool.
The customer took the shot after shot and empathized with how it affects others and stuff like that. It was a really neat, in the end, I think it was very much a win-win situation. Obviously, what we do with it from there is ultimately it.
See, that's cool. That's what can happen. That will get you the golden egg if you have that attitude of win-win. Now, obviously, they were willing to do it. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be, right? But they were willing to give it a try. How about a hand for Dave? That is great when we can facilitate that. Hey, I'm going to give you the golden egg. You're going to give it to Roy?
I'm going to give it a Roy.
All right. So you
Not even knowing what's in it, I'm going to give it a Roy.
Just get chocolate in it, lots of chocolate.
Yeah, this is not Roy, there you go. There is your Cubby
It's a
pen
$50 bill.
and your pocket card and a 4 rolls 7 habits card as well. So that will help you be even more effective now. Now that you got your weight down, you can now do some more.
I did it once, he did it for 7 years.
But the key is, guys, if we don't put these things into action, right, we're not going to see the fruit. So we've got to come up with a game plan. We've got to then say we're going to do it, right? And then we've got to see what the fruit comes from that. So what happens when we don't apply this? You know, we said, well, if we don't have principles and tools, that means, you know, if you don't know what you stand for, you're going to fall for anything, right? And so then rather than being proactive, we're going to be reactive, just letting our emotions, you know, like a weather vane, we're going to wander aimlessly because we don't have a plan. We're just showing up. And then we're going to do whatever's most urgent, right? Just reacting to things around us. But when you get now to the public victory, so that's just our own problems, right? But you get to the public victory, the stakes are higher, right? When you don't think win-win, you get into Win-lose, right? You're less productive. And the problem that we're going to see today is when you always seek first to be understood, you're going to have problems in relationships, right? Because everyone wants to be understood, right? That's one of the great human needs. I want to be understood. But if you're demanding it of other people, you're never going to take time to understand them, right? It's going to be a hard luck proposition for your relationships. And that will then get into leading up to that you always want to get your way. And if you always want to get your way, that's spoiled child syndrome. You know, God has got lots of stories in the Bible about people that want to get their own way and how things happen with that. So we're going to fear then changes in life if we live this kind of lifestyle, right? So the alternative is to be spirit-led, we said, right? Be proactive with our choices, develop a mission and game plan we've been talking about. You know, that's what Artie was saying as well, and then we have to prioritize. We have to make this happen. Make it a stewardship. You know, invest our resources, our talent, and our time, but most importantly, how much of our heart? 100% of the heart, right? All. When we surrender it all, then that's where God can really flood in, right? The abundance. So we've been talking about applying this then as a process, right? Decide what you are, who He made you to be, and then go ahead and put a mission in place, personal as well as professional, right? And we've done that as a company here, Fechtel Company's got a mission statement. Are we living it is the question, right? Understand what your role is on the team, and then make sure that you've got goals, so there's accountability. You hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves accountable to this, and then we set milestones. We pace ourselves because it's not just a sprint, it's a marathon, right? It's a long term, setting up our reputation, right, as the Fechtel Company having an impact. But we got to then manage ourselves, right, from day to day, the decisions to create good luck. So in this process then, we have to make sure that our decisions are already in a context where we're not just going to react, but we know what we're trying to accomplish so we can make those good decisions. So in our time management, where do we want to focus? Which of these 4 quadrants?
1 and 2.
2, right. We invest. That's where relationship building comes from. You invest in relationships to have the fruit of a relationship, right? But if you don't invest, that's when you have stress and you have conflict occurs, those relationships crumble. The key test of a healthy relationship or team is under stress, you come together. If you don't have that investment, the emotional bank account, under stress, you fall apart, right? And that's kind of the test that we want to be able. So we direct all of our time to the preparation. So if we've mapped out our time management, it would look like this, right? We plan, we prepare, and then we execute and we win, right? And we don't worry about then distractions and escapism because we're having too much fun serving the Lord and doing what we want to do together to be successful. So if this is our game plan, has anyone tried to improve their way of using their time by any of these release methods? Has anyone tried to do weekly planning instead of just daily planning? Or build in flexibility, build in swap spaces? Shane, have you tried to do any of this?
All the time.
All the time, right? Because every little investment you get will then produce greater fruit. And you take that fruit and you invest it again, and you start multiplying the gains in your time management. So we've got to be able to put these pieces in place, maybe one at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, back about a month or so ago, my wife and I were doing the weekly planning. Well, then the hurricane hit, and then like the last few weeks just kind of went whoa, and it just got busier and crazier, and we got into the daily, like, oh, okay, what do we got to do today? Oh, I forgot this, forgot that. And then this last weekend, we were kind of like, wait a second, why don't we get back to planning our week? And so Sunday we sat down and we were like, okay, what do we have this week? And even looked to just check what's coming even beyond that. And already this week we're like, okay, it's a little more chill, a little more like prepared for what's coming. So
you're in sync as a team, a little more calm. How about a hand for Kevin? That's the realization, right? The great part is when you get this habit as a young couple, you're going to have a lifetime of fruit from it, right? All of us, you know, sometimes whenever you start, it's good, right? The sooner the better, right? So the key that also we talk about is delegation, right? Make sure when we're asking for work to be done, we set these people up for success. Or if you're not sure what you're being delegated to, use that stewardship delegation to interview, to make sure you're clear so we don't have a white rock story, right? We are able to do it right the first time and be productive. So knowing the level of initiative for that person in that role, is so important to set them up for success. They might be a veteran at one thing, but you ask them to do something new, and they still think they're a veteran, but they're not. They need more of your involvement to set them up for success. So instead of blaming, we've talked about now building an environment of cooperation. But it only comes if we change the way we think. So that's what RV was saying. If you think in this bimodal kind of mode, if it's good or bad, if I gotta have it all, someone's gonna have nothing. If I'm gonna be right, I gotta prove other people are wrong, right? If I'm gonna be the best, what do I try to do? Make someone else feel the worst, right? That's that competitive that's not productive. That's going X rather than going Y. If we build each of us up, we can do more collectively together. And then we don't have the emotional baggage of feeling hurt because you weren't treated fairly. And believe me, we talked about it before, you don't win arguments, right? And Kevin knows that, it's already learned. A happy wife means a happy life, right? So we want to be fair in building this up. So if we are in conflict or disagreement, what should we do? What's the first step that you take, since you can't change the other person, right? You can only change who? Yourself. You only have control of yourself. So what can you do to get from lose-lose to win-win? What would be the first step?
Consideration.
Consideration. Thank you. That's right. So we try to say, okay, what can I give to that other person? If my wife is unhappy, what can I give her to show that I really do love her and care about her? We're just having a tough time over this issue, right? Restore the trust. Make a deposit in the emotional bank account. Because otherwise, we're only caught up in, well, what have you done for me lately, kind of thing, right? And that doesn't work in relationships, because there's always a give and take. It can't be, what am I getting today? Unfortunately, our culture is what's in it for me, and at any time you don't think you're getting what you want, they hit the panic button, the escape, eject, and they jump out of relationships rather than invest in that relationship. So the only way to get to uniting is an investment process. But someone's got to be big enough to ask the other person to seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's why Covey, even though this is win-win, he made it a separate habit because it's so important to focus on. It's not just the principle, but it's the practice, right? So today we're focusing on how can we build a win-win culture in our lives. And the only one you have control of is yourself, right? So you can spread, Dave put some Y's up there as kind of an investment to his team, right? Saying, hey, this is where I'm at, right? And we figured it out. That is the process. So how do we do that now in our communication skills? So loving one another is not just a good idea, it's a commandment, right? Love one another as I loved you. So how many know people, okay, you don't need any names, how many know people that tend, when something goes wrong, they play the blame game? They try to find who to blame. Does anyone, just raise your hand if you know someone who's like that? Okay, if you find someone who's a blame game, they're operating in a win-lose mindset, whether they realize it or not. Because if you find someone to blame, now it's their problem, right? You're the good person, they're the problem, as opposed to we all are either, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? You've got to be part of changing the blaming to cooperating. Not that we're all cheerleaders here, right? But we could be creating great formations of work here, having some fun. So our principle of success is the golden rule, which is?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
That's right. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Does anyone know what verse that is in the Bible? That's like a good verse to know.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Luke 6:31.
Yes, it's two different gospels. That's right. Matthew 7:12, right? Luke. So I'm going to show you a video, and this is how basic. It's like almost kid stuff. So remember Dr. Seuss? If we didn't learn this early on, we've lived this all our lives. So Dr. Seuss has a little story, a little parable, so to speak, of what happens when we don't think win-win, when we get caught in conflict. How many know the story of the Zacks? Raise your hand if you remember the Zack story. You didn't read that one. That wasn't as popular as Cat in the Hat.
And the tale of the Zacks.
See if you
One day,
can relate to
making
this.
tracks in the prairie of Prags came a north-going Zacks, a north-going Zacks, and a south-going Zacks. A
Determined.
north-going Zacks
Focused.
and the south-going Zacks. And it happened that both of them came to a place where they met. There they stood, foot to foot, face to face. Look here now, the north-going Zack said. Hey, say, you are blocking my path. You are right in my way. I'm a north-going Zax, and I always go north. Get out of my way now and let me go forth. Who's in whose way?
Some subs.
Snapped the south-going Zax. I always go south, making south-going tracks. So you're in my way, and I ask you to move and let me go south in my south-going groove. Then the north-going Zack said with north-going pride, I never have taken a step to one side, and I'll prove to you that I won't change my ways if I have to keep standing here 59 days. And I'll prove to you, yelled the south-going Zack, that I can stand here in the prairie of tracks for 59 years. Well, I live by a rule that I learned as a boy back in south-going school. Never budge, that's my rule. Never budge in the least, not an inch to the west, not an inch to the east. I'll stay here not budging, I can and I will, and it makes you and me and the whole world stand still.
Does he really have that control? Now we call that stubborn. But each of them thinks they're right from their perspective. Getting the message, are they? But seriously, we have family situations where there's been conflict that's been buried for a long time and people won't talk to each other, people won't resolve their differences, and it just goes on and on and on.
Well, of course, the world didn't stand still. The world grew. In a couple of years, the new highway came, and they built it right over those two stubborn Zacks and left them there, standing unbudged in their tracks.
All right, so what's the moral of the story? Who can sum it up in their own words?
Go westbound, young man.
Change it, take a different direction, all right? What else? Who's got a good way to sum that up? What just happened there?
Be flexible.
Okay, so flexibility, right? We get tested on that every day, right? We gotta take something, right? Take lemons and make lemonade out of it, right?
One could have just crawled between the other one's
Yeah,
legs and they didn't even have to be flexible.
Right, they
But
could
There
he
you
could have kept going south-north, they would have just...
Improvise, yeah.
So improvising, being creative problem solvers, right? But were they being problem solvers?
No, they were in Congress.
They were being problem creators, right? Because they would refuse to consider anything other than their way, right? So think about it. Do you know any family members? Is there anything going on in your maybe extended family where there is unresolved issues that people are too stubborn to pray about it, to talk about it, to find a win-win, find some way to break through to the other side? And so the hurting continues and maybe even gets passed on from one generation to the next, right? So we don't, what Covey says is do not be someone who passes on the legacy, right, of brokenness. We are going to be change agents. We're going to be that new person that changes the way. Maybe these are things they've been raised that way, it's the way they've been schooled, their culture, whatever it is, but you can be that transition person, right? You can make a difference. Maybe there's subs that we have, right? Dave, you were talking about where sometimes they can be rather stubborn at times, right? But can we be the peacemaker? Can we help facilitate what Dave just shared, the story of finding a third alternative, right? So this is the opportunity that we have, but it takes us being able to do it ourselves if we're going to be able to share it with someone else. So there's two kinds of problems, right? There's people problems and process problems. Today we're going to focus on people problems, right? I think we're all pretty good. We can solve process problems, right? continuous improvement, Adam's been preaching that a long time, right? But people problems is what we've dealt with. Now, when we die, when we go to heaven, do process problems, are they going to stick with you? Are you going to be on Judgment Day judged on how well you did your process problems?